Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So for this video, we got this 2012 Cummins here that is throwing a turbocharger communication code, some EGR mixing valve codes, and a mass airflow code. So let's come along and we'll get this diagnosed and yeah, get her fixed. So on these trucks, when they have multiple codes for different systems, it's usually a common problem between all three circuits. So this truck here, you can see the turbo actuator, mass airflow, and EGR cooling bypass valve are all operated by the TIPM, and they are operated by the automatic shutdown relay, so the ASD relay. So first thing we got to do is find fuse M20, or sorry, fuse M21 and fuse M19. It's a 25 amp and a 20 amp, and see with key on, engine off, if there's power at these fuses. So fuse 19 is right here. It's 25 amp, as you can see. It's just reading nothing. It's reading a ground. There's no voltage there. On 19, 21 is right beside it. And we have the same deal here. No power going to the fuses. If you come over here to the mass airflow and the EGR bypass valve, you'll find the same deal on the circuits going over here. There will be little to no voltage on it because the circuit's supposed to have battery voltage, but since there's no voltage going to it, you're getting codes for all the separate systems. So yeah, on our turbo actuator, there's hardly any voltage. On our mass airflow, there's hardly any voltage, and same with the EGR mixing valve. So on the mass airflow, it is this wire here, a brown with an orange tracer, and same with our spool valve. So then what you need to do is find out if the relay is working like it should and sending power to those fuses. Since there's no power there, then the relay isn't getting triggered or is bad. So to figure out if they're bad, you basically just swap relays. So you can take this one out, switch it with this one. Check again for power. Still nothing. So then you have to remove your relay and check for battery voltage on pin 30 and pin 85. So you can see a little diagram on the relay itself, and if you flip it over to the bottom, you see there's pin 30, there's 85. So that will be these two pins here. So if we go into 30, we will see 12.3 volts. So that's battery voltage, that's good. Go into pin 35, same deal, 12.3 volts. And so that tells us that the voltage side of the relay is good, and we possibly have a control side problem. So most vehicles are a ground control system. So the way the relay works is the ECM grounds pin 86 of the relay. Pin 85 has battery voltage from the ASD relay output, so a circuit board inside the TIPM that you can't service. And then there's also battery voltage going to pin 30. So once pin 86 is grounded by the ECM, that sends voltage through that circuit, and this is a symbol for like a magnet. So a magnetic field is built up, and then you can see there's like a switch from 30 to 87A. 87A, there's no pin, So once the magnetic field builds in the relay, it flips over to 87, sends power to fuse 19 and 21. On this vehicle, M19 isn't used for anything, but M21, which is a 20 amp fuse, gets sent through connector C130 on the bottom of the TIPM. Another connector, 105, which I believe is the main engine harness. So that connector right there. And then goes down to the turbo actuator, mass airflow, and coolant, or EGR cooling bypass valve. So then if we put voltage to pin 87, the EGR valve and everything should work properly. So what you can do is, if you have a power probe or a fused jumper wire, you can jump power to that and you should be able to hear the turbo actuator cycle. If you can hear the actuator cycle, then you know it's a control problem. And then we can look into the connectors going from the ECM to the TIPM itself. So pin 86 is this one right here. So you get good, make good connection on it, put power to it. And I don't know if you can hear it from over there, but you can hear the turbo actuator cycling. So I'm gonna put the camera down in there facing the turbo, and you should be able to hear it cycle. So since putting power to the output side of the relay makes the turbo actuator cycle, that means we have a control side problem. So something going from the ECM to the TIPM. So we're gonna have to take the TIPM out and see what the problem is under there. So for taking the TIPM out, there are 4 little clips. So there's one down here. You push the top in of it and it pops out. There is one on this side as well, on the back, and then on the front, you see it right there. Push the top tab in, just pull up, and then on the other side here there is a 4th one. Then once you have those clips out, the TIPM will lift out like so. And once you have it out, you can see all the connectors. And the one we're looking for is C130, which is this blue one right here. So you can see the ECM sends a ground signal through C130 at pin 31, which is a brown black wire, circuit number K51, and sends it up to pin 86. So C130 is what we're looking for. That is the only connector in there other than the ECM connector. But in my experience, it's hardly ever an ECM connector, usually something underneath the TIPM. So once you get to the bottom of it and find the blue connector, which is C130, undo that and just look for pins that are corroded or broken off or bent or anything like that. Now to undo these clips, this red tab has to be, it's usually down, it has to be pushed up. And then there's also a tab right here that you push down, which pops the lever up. And they're sometimes a little stiff. It takes 2 hands, so just put pressure on that and wiggle it side to side. And it pops out. And as you can see, found our problem right here. It has the green death. This connector is full of corrosion on this one pin. So you can see the one pin down in there is green and rotted off. that is the signal wire from the ECM. So this connector's corroded and has to be replaced, and the TIPM is corroded internally and needs to be replaced. Now if it was just like an internal relay, I have found a place called CCR Technologies that can rebuild these for a reasonable price, but if a pin or something's rotted off, then there's not much they can do about it, I guess. I've tried in the past, and yeah, they're not able to, I believe. So we got to put a new connector on here and replace the TIPM. So luckily Dodge makes a repair connector for all the connectors on the TIPM. So you have your connector, shrink tube, all your pins, everything are all in this bag. And there's the part number for it. I'll also put the part numbers in the description down below. So that's the connector. And that is the TIPM for this vehicle. Again, I'll put the part number in the description below. I have a 2011 outside, this is a 12, and it's the same part number, same TIPM. So the years are interchangeable between them. So now we got to cut these wires off, repin that connector, and solder these together, replace the TIPM, and we'll be good to go. So to undo the TIPM, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 connectors underneath, and a battery cable going to the top right here. So yeah, you just undo that bolt or that nut and it pops right out. And here we have our new TIPM. It comes with all the fuses, all the relays, everything already installed, but for some reason does not come with a new nut for the battery cable. Doesn't make sense to me why you supply all this but not a nut. So we got to reuse the old nut. The old nut was kind of rusty, so we'll just clean up with a wire wheel, put some Diag electrical grease on here, and away we go. But first, we got to replace that blue connector, so C130, with the repair kit. So here's everything that comes with the connector repair kit. You have your connector. You have these little crimp connect things. So you strip both wires, crimp it together, then you can fill that with solder. It comes with all the shrink tube, which is dual walled, so it has the glue in it to give you a nice seal. And it comes with 3 sizes of wire. So you got your bigger wires with your bigger terminals on them here. You have some medium-sized wires with some smaller terminals, and then you have some smaller wires with some smaller yet terminals. So basically, whatever wire is in the connector on the truck, the same gauge has to go in this connector. So what you do is you snip the other connector off and then match them up with these wires and then just wire it in. You take a connector and just cut them off all at about the same length, leaving enough room to get your shrink tap or shrink wrap and everything in there, and enough room so that you can solder it. So there we go, we got our connector off. Now we'll take it over to the bench, find out what size wires go where, and put them in. So looking at our connector, we have one big thick one in the top corner here. So we'll take one of these big thick green ones, make sure it's facing the same way. Now these wires have like a locking tab on them. That locking tab has to face down. So push that in until you feel it and hear a click. So that one's locked in. Now if you go right beside that, there is a medium-sized wire. So we'll take one of these blue ones put it in there. Same deal. Locking tab faces down. Oh, actually it's a small wire because the medium wire won't fit in there. So we'll unwrap our small wires. Take one of them. Spot right beside. You can see they also have a locking tab on them. It has to face down. And then push it in. Till you hear a click. And then that one's in. And then if we go over 3 more spots, 1, 2, 3, and then on the 4th one, there's another wire, and it is also a small wire, so we'll take another small wire. So 1, 2, 3 in the 4th slot, locking tab down, until you hear a click. Okay, so these 3 are done. Next row down, go over 3, you'll see another wire. It also looks like a small one, so we'll take another small one. 1, 2, 3. That in there. Then on the bottom, on the outside hole, there's a medium-sized wire, so we'll take the blue one, which is our medium size, and push it in. You hear click. Now there's another small one, 2 holes over, so 1, 2. And then another small one, 2 holes over, so 1, 2. And then another medium-sized wire in the very edge. In the very end. So another one of these. Another one of these blue ones here. And there. So now we got all those in. Now to lock them in place. This red tab is sticking up. You just push it down and that locks everything in there. So now these wires, they won't pull out unless you pull this red piece back up, and then you have to reach in with like a small pick or something and push the tab down, and then you can pull the wire back out. But as long as you put the same size wires in the same hole as the original connector, you don't have to worry about taking it back out. So let's take this back over to the truck and match the wires up and get soldering. I cut these ends a little bit longer than the ones on the factory plug that I cut off, just to give me a little extra room to work with. And so I can put the shrink tube down further on the wire so it doesn't heat up as much when I solder it. So yeah, these ones here are all done. So now you just want to take your shrink tube, put it down like that. Actually, we'll start on the bigger wire here. Just do one at a time. Now for these little soldering clips, there are different sizes of them too. So for the big wire, you obviously use the big one, and then the smaller ones, you use the smaller ones. So this big one goes to the orange with a gray tracer. So that's this one right here. We already have our shrink tube on here. So what we want to do is put these 2 wires together like that. So what you want to do is get the 2 pieces of wire together and then put this little crimpy thing over it. or put this little crimp connect over it and fold the 1/2 down. And then fold the other half towards the center as well. So then you have a connection that looks like this. So there's still enough wire exposed that when you heat it up and get the solder in there, all the solder will leach into it, and it's small enough around for the shrink tube to fit over. So I'm going to get something to clamp this up here like that, and we'll get to soldering. Alright, so for soldering, what you want to do first is heat your tip up of your gun, and then put a little bit of solder on the tip of it. And what that does is help with heat transfer from the gun to the wire, because the solder stays melted and gives you more surface area. And then up at the top, just keep trying until it gets hot enough, and then it'll eventually melt. Like that. And then you just feed it into the wires. It's kind of neat because you'll see it like leach in between the strands. So then you know you got a good coating inside. There we go, that's one. Now let it cool down a little bit, and then we can take our shrink tube, or when it's hot, you can take your shrink tube, slide it over, and get your heat gun or your torch and just shrink that. And then that is one wire down, one down, 7 to go. So there we go, there's one done. You can see on the ends there is some glue coming out, so that means we got a good melt inside of there. So yeah, now we just got to do the rest of them. So there we go. She's down inside there. Everything's all buttoned up. Power wire's back on. Now when you buy these, they come with the airbag fuses up, so it kind of deactivates the system. So all you do to activate it again, push those down, and you are good to go. So now let's key on again. Check our fuses. There we go. 12.2 at that one. 12.2 at that one. So now we'll clear the codes out and take it for a test drive and see how she's running. So took her for a test drive, no codes present. You can see the exhaust brake is working again. And yeah, she's driving like a champ. So that wire was the cause of all our problems. So this truck is now good to go. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it helpful. And yeah, if you're having problems with your turbocharger, mass airflow, and EGR valve, most likely it's a TIPM problem. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. So we will see you in the next one.